السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما بعد. 2 days ago, or is it 3 days ago, Ma'ruf had a program, Hear My Story, Personal Testimonies, in which I was supposed to be a speaker or presenter. Unfortunately, my microphone wasn't working well then. And as a result, it's just one of those situations where I thought, okay, alhamdulillah, I have this opportunity ahead of me right now on Friday. So I thought I'd give the same message, and those who were there for the program and they were able to hear somehow, alhamdulillah, they don't have to worry about it. And those who were not there for the program and they want to be able to see what I was speaking about, then, inshallah, I'll cover it over here. And I think it's an important topic for all of us to know. And not surprisingly, it's going to revolve around what happened with the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And people might be thinking, well, I'm sick of hearing about this. Some people are actually thinking about that. I don't want to hear about this anymore. And I guess it's understandable in some ways that, you can only hear about something so many times, I guess. At the same time, I want all of us to take a moment to sort of think about a narration of Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu. And Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu in this narration, he is interacting with another Sahabi. Some of the scholars mention that he's speaking to a Bilal radiallahu anhu. Other scholars mention that it wasn't Bilal radiallahu anhu, it was a slave that Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu had. There's some differences here about this. But I felt that one situation was very, very compelling about this narration. Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu on one occasion was with this man, even if we say it's Bilal radiallahu anhu, and they began to sort of exchange some words. And when they began to exchange some words, Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu said to him, Yabna Sauda. He said, Yabna Sauda. Oh, son of a black woman. That's what he said. Now, when he said this offended and upset the Sahabi. Says the Sahabi radiallahu anhu went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he complained about what Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu mentioned. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when this was brought to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's attention, the entire story was mentioned. That he said to him that, like, why did this happen? And so Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, in the narration, one narration I'm looking at right now, he says, إِنَّهُ كَانَ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ رَجُلٍ مِّنْ إِخْوَانِي كَلَامٌ. That some speech, some verbal altercation occurred between me and a brother of deen between me. وَكَانَتْ أُمُّهُ أَعْجَمِيَّةً. And his mother was a non-Arab. فَعَيَّرْتُهُ بِأُمِّهِ. So I insulted him through his mother. Now, we know that there are very few insults a person can give that reaches the status of insulting someone like insulting their mother. فَشَكَانِي إِلَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. So he complained to the Prophet about me. فَلَقِيتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَقَالَ. So I met the Prophet and he said, Ya Abu Dharr, O Abu Dharr, innaka, verily you are, imru'un fika jahiliya. That you are a person that some of the traces of our times of ignorance still exist within you. فَقُلْتُ. So I said, Ya Rasulullah, Messenger of Allah, man sabba rajala sabbu abahu wa ummuhu. Whoever insults or verbally insults, I guess, a person, well, the common practice is what? That they return it by insulting their parents. So Rasulullah heard him out and he said, قال, Ya Aba Dhar, O Abu Dhar, innaka, verily you are, imru'un, a person, fika jahiliya. That in you there's still some trace of jahiliya. Hum ikhwanukum. That these individuals, and in this case, the slaves, are your brothers. جعلهم الله تحت أيديكم. Allah has put them under your authority. فَأَطْعِمُوهُم مِّمَّا تَأْكُلُونَ. So whatever you eat, feed them from that same food. وَأَلْبِسُوهُم مِّمَّا تَلْبَسُونَ. And whatever you wear as garments, clothe them the same way. وَتُكَلَّفُوهُم وَلَا تُكَلِّفُوهُم مَّا يَغْلِبُهُم. And don't put upon them a responsibility, a burden that's so heavy that they're unable to carry out. فَإِن كَلَّفْتُمُوهُم فَعِينُوهُم. And if you do give them a task that's too difficult, you go help them out. Now, this completely takes away that term slave. So when you say the word slave, sometimes we think of the American concept of slave. That's not what we're referring to over here. The American concept of slave, tell me which slave owner, dresses his slaves or her slaves in the same clothing, feeds them the same food, helps them with the task. That doesn't happen. This is more like a type of indentured servitude, because we know even in this concept of quote unquote slavery within the Islamic perspective, that they can still earn money, except that doesn't happen within American slavery or etc. And so anyway, now when Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu hears this, what does he do? He goes to this man. Some scholars say it's Bilal radiallahu anhu. And he says to him, he lays down. He puts his face into the dirt. And he says, step on me, step on my neck, step on my face, step on my face. And he says, no, I've forgiven you. He said, no, step on me, step on my cheek, step on my face. Meaning that I've insulted you. The only way that we can now be okay with one another is if you can step on my face, the place of honor. And that will now be a retribution for me for what I did wrong. And he refused to do so. And he actually, I believe, kisses the forehead of Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu and says that you're forgiven. But the idea here is, look, in one case, in our modern society, where we are so advanced, a person is shown the hatred and the abhorrence that exists, unfortunately, for a group of people. And we say it doesn't exist, but unfortunately it does exist. By having his knee upon the neck of that person until that person dies. The oppressor is oppressing by putting his knee upon the throat of the individual who is now what? Who did actually nothing wrong. But the oppressor is oppressing him through this. And in the case of our Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the ones who were trained on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the oppressor, the one who did wrong, puts his face on the ground and tells the one who is oppressed, you step on me. I mean, almost exact duplicate actions. You step on me. I wronged you. You step on me. It is an absolute reflection, but in the opposite paradigm of what happened today, that we have people in the time of the Prophet ﷺ who felt the only way that I can undo my wrong to you of one statement is you step on me. That's the only way we can undo it. And here we have what? I'm going to show that, racism hasn't ended by, until the person is bleeding from his nose, wets his pants, crying for his mother who's passed away, crying out, I can't breathe, and 4 officers just standing there doing nothing. And so we have to understand that change happens through Islam. And change, when we're talking about change happening with Islam, Allah Ta'ala mentions, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ excuse me, مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah Ta'ala does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. And Allah Ta'ala mentions in another verse of Quran that Allah Ta'ala says, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادِ البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. That from what we have done wrong, from our own end, our hands, and what we have done, that now what comes out is this corruption that fills the land, the sea. Then he mentions لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. So that Allah Ta'ala makes them taste some of what they did so they may return. That some of the wrongdoings happen, Allah Ta'ala allows us to see it because look, this has been happening for centuries. But the camera phone only came out like 2 decades ago or 1.5 decades ago, whatever it came out. So now people are recording it. But this has been happening for centuries, and people are daily being abused and being oppressed, though they might not die. But this person died and it was caught on camera. So now people are seeing the gravity and the extent to which this goes. Allah Ta'ala, لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. That these things happen, we see them, they're brought to our attention. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. So we can turn back to Allah Ta'ala and turn back to the way of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So how do we turn back? How do we make sure that we're part of the solution, not part of the problem? First thing all of us have to understand is that if we consider that we are not part of the problem, then we're part of the problem. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he mentioned that no one thinks they're free from hypocrisy except for the hypocrites. So all of us should always have some fear. When Rasulullah saw dark clouds coming, he would race to the masjid and the companions do so and they would beg Allah for forgiveness and do tawbah. Why would that generation be punished? But every person always looks to himself, herself, and thinks, people of piety, that there's still some wrong that I'm doing. They're always trying to improve themselves. So we should never think I'm free of this. There's always some remnant. And look what Rasulullah says to Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu. He didn't say that you're a jahil. He didn't say that. He says, إِنَّكَ إِمْرُؤٌ. You're a person, فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَةٌ. That in you, there's still, yes, you've progressed, you're advanced, you're a better person than you were before. You're no longer a highway robber, you're no longer a brigand, but there's still some remnants there. And when they come out, you have to identify immediately that they can come out in order to do what? Change yourself for the betterment of yourself and the betterment of the people. And that's something we have to all do. And then when Abu Dharr justifies that, oh, subhanAllah, what do you say? A person, he curses you. What do? We curse out, their parents. That's just normal activity. So what the Prophet said? He said again, إِنَّكَ إِمْرُؤٌ, and fi riwaya rajulun, fika jahiliya. That you're a person, in you there is oppression. There's jahiliya, there's ignorance within you. Not all of you, but there's some remnants there. And what happens sometimes, I'm going to mention some things in particular. And sometimes we say things in the community, like we call African Americans kallu or abid or rat. Kallu meaning black person, abid meaning slave, or rat meaning night, like they look like the night. And then I'm just joking around. Oh, I didn't mean it seriously. It's not a big deal. I would say to them, none of these things are justification. When Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu tried to justify his action, the Prophet brought his attention back that no matter how we think through our normal activity that this is okay, it's still not okay. It's still not okay. And we have to now begin to think, is it okay that our masajid do not have representatives of the African American community on it? Is it okay that we only have African American imams, pretty much the only quote unquote African American masajid? I'm going to speak about that shortly. Is it okay that we say kallu, etc.? Because these terms, rhetoric, we see, al-lisan tarjuman al-qalb. Now this is the interpreter of what's in the heart. But if we're saying these terms, derogatory terms, which they are in the end, that means that we are still holding ourselves higher in our heart than others. And so we have to, to all these terms that we use and whatever your languages may use, we have to lock them out. Rasulullah did not use these terms. These are not befitting of the tongue of a believer. So we begin to stop our systemic internal supports of racism without knowing it, unknowingly, by cutting out these terms. Secondly, don't use terms like, oh, that's a black masjid, that's an Arab masjid, that's a Desi masjid. Don't say that. Why? Because, one, if it's an Arab masjid, then people might think, well, I can't go. It's an Arab masjid, it's a Desi masjid, I can't go. But two, because of just the systemic racism that's been occurring and discrimination over the past so many years in this country, there have been red line districts. Redlining, it's a term that African Americans have been put into, and less property tax for educational purposes, and there's a lot of less financial benefits going to that area. So sometimes those masajid, do not have as much financial support, and as a result, what happens is that they may not look as spectacular with a minaret, etc. They might not. I'm just speaking in generalities over here. When you say that's a black masjid, then what we're doing is now we're associating black with, okay, it's in a neighborhood that might not be the best. And again, I'm not calling anyone out. Or that it's in a, it might be just a storefront, just a storefront. Medina Munawwara, Masjid Nabi was a very small reality, but look at the power. So we don't put these things down. And you see an Arab masjid, has a dome, it has a minaret. We see a Desi masjid, has all this glass and decoration, etc. Then when we say that, we play this association word game, and our children are affected by it. So what do we say? We say, no, that's Masjid Al-Huda. That's Masjid Nursi. That's Masjid ISM or Masjid Nur. That's Musalla Nur. That's Masjid Rahman or Dawah Center. That's Masjid Quran. And we go by the terms that we name them. Just like we don't say someone sells kallu, we call them what? You're Muhammad, you're Abdurrahman, you're Hashim, whatever the person's name may be. We also by the actual institutions we describe in the same way, so we don't falsely attribute association within our households or within our own hearts that are not correct. The next thing is that we need to begin to listen. On so many occasions, the Prophet listened to people with experience that he didn't have. At Khandaq, he listened to Salman al-Farsi. He didn't say, well, you're not Arab, you don't know how the Arabs fight. He didn't say that. Well, he didn't say, okay, well, any Arabs have any? No. You have experience, you speak, not because you're Persian, and not because you're not Persian, because you are a person with experience. Share your experience with me so we may benefit. We can't go say, well, look, our parents migrated and no, it's a whole different reality. We don't live in a situation where the term African American, why even there's politics even within the African communities. You're Somali American, you're Sudanese American, you're African American. Because African Americans, they don't always have the ability to trace back their lineage. So they know they came from Africa. They can't say we came from Somalia, except it's often the West Coast, maybe from Mali, etc. These regions, but they don't know for sure. And so this term has been created to help at least give some situation of belonging. Regardless, we can't understand what that means if you're not African American. So what do we say? Don't say, well, here's my advice. Why are we saying here's my advice? Let's listen what they have to say. And this is not only for African Americans. This is for the refugee families that come from Syria, that come from the Rohingya refugees, etc. Let's hear what they have to say. They might say, look, we don't need this. What we need you to do is something else. We're often telling people what's right for them. Even the Prophet, whose responsibility was to tell people what's right, listened to people first. And he often took their suggestion. This is why they fought